I'm sitting here going, Welcome again to The Grid. I'm Mike Foreman, a sports writer for the Victoria Advocate, joined again by Marcus Gutierrez, also a sports writer for the Advocate. And we have a very busy week of football coming up. Had kind of a busy week last week as things started to get back to normal from the hurricane. And one thing that happened that we should talk about is Victoria East picked up its first win. Very exciting game that Ray Castillo covered. Had to go to overtime and actually had a rally. I mean, was down to fourth down, converted a big pass, scored a touchdown, forced overtime, and then won by a conversion kick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very. I was, as writers, we're on the road looking at Twitter, and we're like, "Oh, what's going on?" Just watching Ray's tweets, and we saw them come back, which is a good sign for any team.
Yeah.
You get the ability to come back on a team is really good. Ray told us that Tomlinson was very a big deal in that game.
Yeah.
He carried the team along with quarterback Grant Baker. And that's good to see that resiliency from your team, especially being down at home. Sometimes you think in high school with a team
Right.
being down, they would just lay down, we'll get ready for next week. But the Titans came back, and to get that win in overtime, that's a big confidence booster right there.
Right, and of course the Titans have some traveling to do on Friday night. They're going to be driving to the Valley, and they're going to play McAllen High. The Titans handled McAllen pretty easily last year. We'll see if they can carry over the momentum from that win over East Central against McAllen.
Yeah, McAllen, the Valley teams, they always say they have their own area, but a lot of great teams come out of that area, and it'll be a road test. That long drive, you're going to see what East can do. They're high school kids making that drive. They're going to have their naps, they're going to get tired and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's how they get off that bus and what's their mindset when they hit that field.
Right, and of course, speaking of drives, not quite as long for West. They just go right up 87, and they're going to play the Lavernia Bears. Lavernia picked up its first win last week. It beat LaGrange. West defeated Lavernia last year. This is a win that they need to get, isn't it?
Yeah, I talked to several players this week, and they're hungry for a win. Last week against Alamo Heights didn't turn out like they wanted, but you could see the positives in that game. You saw a young sophomore running back, Tyvon Hardrick, have over 187 yards. He's got 227 yards on the season already. That's really good to see from a young player, and you could see that running game that we saw last year is starting to pick up. And Lavernia, like you said last year, they took care of them pretty good with a good running game and a solid defense, and I think that's what we're going to see from West again this year.
Yeah, so this is a game, I mean, they're getting ready to start district, and it would help to their confidence to get a win before district.
Yeah, talking with Warriors head coach Courtney Boyce, he says the effort's there. Now they just need to execute and put it all together. They got some good news on Wednesday. Senior running back Chase Greavy got cleared for practice. He's not going to start, but he's going to be in the game. So now you have a two-headed monster potentially in
Right.
Greavy and Hardwick, and that's always great to have, especially once you're heading into district. So we're going to see that. Finally, we're going to see a whole West team there on the field. They got tremendous athletes everywhere. So it'd be a good for them to go on the road, try to get this win, prepare for district.
Right, and of course, let's talk about Calhoun, the other district team. Sand Crabs ran into a little bump in the road. El Campo defeated them. Hard-nosed game there between those two teams, and the Ricebirds came out on top. But Calhoun now, they get to play at home for the first time this season at Sand Crab Stadium, and they'll be playing Liberty Hill, which is a wing T team, or I'm sorry, a slot T team. So that game, I think will go fairly quickly. I don't expect you'll see a lot of passing in that game, but I know the Sand Crabs would like to get another win right there too.
And Port Lavaca was devastated with Hurricane Harvey. It's going to be the first time at Sand Crab Stadium, and it's going to be good for the community. You know, you've been there several years. You know that those fans come.
Yeah.
It's loud. It's a great atmosphere, and I'm pretty sure that's going to do a lot for the city.
Right, and I know when I was down there talking to Coach Richard Whitaker after he picked up his 100th win at Calhoun, he showed me a picture of the stadium actually on his phone. The press box is all done. The renovations are all done now, so they're really excited about going in there and playing their first game there. So I think the Sand Crabs, I think they defeated Liberty Hill last year, so I'm sure they'll be ready. Of course, you know, when you play a slot T team, I know Calhoun has kind of an advantage because it runs the option, which is not the same thing, but there are some similarities. So I think defensively they should be prepared as well. And moving on, we have our St. Joseph Flyers, who you got to look at last Saturday. Lost a tough one to Tomball Christian. They go on the road to play an undefeated industrial team. What do we expect from this game?
St. Joseph, me personally, I thought they looked a lot better than last year, and that starts with quarterback Jacob Bordowski. Coach Hall raved about him. I finally get to see him, and this young man is the real deal. He can beat you with his arm and his leg. He's got a great chemistry with his receivers, and it's really good. And the team they went up against, they had some great athletes. You know, they were able to throw the ball. So I think that game really helped them out to see what kind of team they were. You know, cramps and all the low energy and stuff like that. It kind of hurt them. And Bordowski wasn't even to play in the fourth quarter. But I think if he plays in that fourth quarter, they come out and get that win. But I saw great positive things from them. You know, we haven't seen Industrial yet. We'll be able to see them, but we've noticed that they're throwing the ball a little bit more. They got a spread offense now, so it's going to be interesting to see what the Cobras look like this Friday.
Right. You know, Industrial, I think they'll admit they haven't been really tested yet, so we're really not sure exactly, you know, just how good they are. But they came out with wins in their first two games, which is what counts. And I know they're anxious, and like you said, they were there watching St. Joseph. So I'm sure the Cobras know what to expect from the Flyers. And that, you know, that's something I'm sure that, and it is kind of a rivalry. They used to play more often. They haven't, you know, they played last year, but they hadn't played as frequently as they used to. But the proximity of the schools makes it, you know, a rivalry. And speaking of rivalries, this, you know, sometimes I think lately has gotten overshadowed by Cuero Yoakum, but Cuero Gonzalez for years was a huge rivalry. I mean, those two teams really got after it, and now they've kind of gone their separate ways in a way. I mean, they're both Class 4A, but with Gonzalez being in Region 3, it's a little different now, but those two will meet up at Gobbler Stadium. The Gobblers, of course, 2-0. Gonzalez 2-1, lost to Navarro, which Cuero knows well enough what Navarro's all about. That's who beat Cuero last year in the quarterfinals. But the Gobblers have a chance here to go 3-0.
They'll be tested. Gonzalez, I've seen them before. They have a really strong offense and defensive line, and that's what I'm pretty sure Cuero has as well. So it's going to be interesting to see the battle in the trenches, and you know that's where the games are won. Both teams have athletes. Maybe Cuero has a little bit more, but I saw those Gonzalez kids play, and they don't give up. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Friday night.
Yeah, and speaking of the trenches, I think that's where Cuero, you know, the question mark was. They graduated a lot from that, especially the defensive line. You know, Savion Patton, we talked about him a lot last year. He's now playing as a true freshman at Texas State. So, you know, that's where the Gobblers knew they would be tested. They obviously have a ton of skilled people. Their secondary is excellent. So that'll be interesting to see how Gonzalez can move the ball against Cuero's offensive front. And not far from Cuero and Edna, we have Refugio and Edna going on. This game was scheduled for Refugio, but obviously with what's happened with Hurricane Harvey, Refugio, like they moved the Goliad game. Now they're playing at Edna. I got a chance to see Edna last week against East Bernard, and Coach Jerry Long is putting in, of course, the slot T, which is, I mean, totally new to Edna. But you could see the kind of the improvement last week. You can see they're starting to get it. And they showed a lot to me against East Bernard because they were down 22-7 at half, and really, you know, you kind of wondered what's going to happen here. But they came back and tied the game before East Bernard put together a drive and won it. So that's encouraging for Edna. As far as Refugio goes, it's still kind of a mystery because, I mean, everybody knows that, let's face it, they're ranked number 1 in Class 2A in the state. They're a good team. But with what's happened with the hurricane, that's how that's affected them on and off the field. I mean, they played Goliad, and Coach Herring said, Jason Herring said that you could see in the third and fourth quarter they were getting tired because their conditioning just isn't where it needs to be. But they still found a way to win that game. And the other factor here is Refugio's coming off its bye week, and traditionally Refugio has never really played its best game after a bye. In fact, that's why Coach Herring will have a bye before, not the week before district, because he wants to be, you know, going at full pace when they enter district. But this will be a good test for both teams. I mean, Edna is, we've talked about it. I mean, you know, when you have Yoakum and Hallettsville and those other teams in your district, you have to play good competition, and certainly Edna has. I mean, having played East Bernard, now they play Refugio, they turn around after this and play Sweeney. So, I mean, Edna is getting prepared for district play. And Refugio is just trying to kind of, I think, just trying to get back in the swing of things to where it, you know, it feels normal to go out and have a regular schedule and play a football game on Friday night.
Yeah, I think for Refugio this year, it's more than about football. It's playing for their community, and that community, they love their football. Every Friday night, that town is closed down, and everyone's at the stadium. So they're playing for a little bit more this year. You know, they're ranked number 1. You know, Coach Herring said he likes to be ranked number 1. He's not shy about getting back to AT&T Stadium, but it's going to be 1 week at a time, and hopefully things for the Refugio community get better and they get a little bit more towards a normalcy.
And talking about number 1, Cameron Yo came into the season as the number 1 team in Class 3A. It's lost 2 games, its last 2 games, albeit to very good teams. But Yo is still ranked number 10 in the 3A poll, and it will play at Bay City, which is a game that Bay City coach Lupe Flores scheduled when he got to Bay City, because he spent 3 years as the offensive coordinator at Cameron Yo, and those 3 years they won state championships. So I know last year Yo beat Bay City by like 3 points up in Cameron, and I know Lupe really wants to get a win here. And I think not only that, this is the kind of win that if Bay City can get, it can really start a turnaround on the program. I mean, he's already done that. I mean, they're 2-0 for the first time in a long time. But beating a team like Cameron Yo would really give those players a lot of confidence going forward.
Yeah, both teams are very athletic. You know, Bay City, they went to 7-on-7 state, which is really good. They have a lot of athletes. So it's going to be interesting to see when you go up against a program like a Cameron Yo to see where you are as a team.
Right, and of course, down the road in El Campo, we have another big rivalry, which is the Wharton County rivalry between Wharton and El Campo. I mean, these two guys, you know, El Campo's had the upper hand in this rivalry over the past decade or so. Wharton's only won 1 game, but a lot of those games have been very close. And, you know, Wharton had 2 weeks where it couldn't play, and finally got to open last week and lost to Houston Yates, had to go to Houston. El Campo bounced back from its loss to Angleton and beat Calhoun. And of course, it's a big night at Riceburg Stadium because it's the 50th anniversary of the 1967 state finalist team. So there'll be a lot going on at El Campo. But this game, I know the Ricebirds are kind of preparing for district. They've got to get ready. And I know this is a game that kind of will be a good gauge for them going into district play.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also, speaking of 50-year anniversaries, we have the Tidehaven Tigers who, I was really amazed. I didn't know too much about that 1967 team that won the state title. But when I started looking into it, I was just, it's incredible. That team in 14 games gave up 38 points.
Mm-hmm.
That's just unbelievable. Yeah, I don't care what area you're playing in. That's like less than 3 points a game. I think half their games were shutouts. Mm-hmm. And they're going to recognize that game in Elmaton. Mm-hmm. The Tigers are playing Louise. Mm-hmm. They're also kind of getting ready for district, Mm-hmm. And in fact, Tidehaven opens district against East Bernard. So that'll be, that's going to be a real test. So I think, Coach David Lucio has done a good job down there. He has an excellent running back in Jeff Williams, who's racked up a lot of yards and also actually leads the area in scoring. So Tidehaven is a kind of, I think, a team to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a lot of young players on the team. We weren't sure what to expect, but they're off to a great start going against Louise. And like you said, that East Bernard game is going to be very crucial to start off district.
Another game where it's kind of a rivalry game, although up until last year they kind of stopped playing, is Shiner and Falls City. Mm-hmm. I think this will be a good test for both teams to see where they're at. These two teams are always, somewhere near the top of their classification. Of course, Shiner being Division I in Class 2A and Falls City being Division II. This should be an outstanding game. I mean, I know Coach Cherney has a lot of respect for Falls City, and I'm sure Coach Hart has a lot of respect for Shiner, especially after Shiner kind of manhandled Falls City last year. But mm-hmm. Falls City, Keyshawn Johnson, excellent athlete, playing quarterback, can throw, can run. Shiner, of course, very young team, but this is a team that I think you'll see progress from week to week. And that's why I think this will be a good game for the Comanches.
Yeah, you never can doubt Coach Cherney. He's been there since '88, I think it is. I was born in 1989, mm-hmm. So he's been there for a while. But you never can doubt him. Him and that coaching staff, they're going to get those Comanches to play hard and tough, and you never can count them out.
Another interesting game this week is Giddings at Yoakum. Giddings beat Yoakum last year. In fact, Yoakum lost that game and lost the Edna game, and then it finally got things together mm-hmm. and put together its winning streak. This year, Yoakum, this is you have to give the Bulldogs credit. This is their fourth straight game against a Class 4A mm-hmm. team. So Coach Robinson knows what he's doing. He's preparing Edna for that district. Mm-hmm. And, it'd be interesting to see because Giddings is a good team. It's lost 2 games, mm-hmm. but the games it lost were they lost to Wimberley, and I believe it lost to Navarro mm-hmm. before it finally won last week against Canyon Lake. Mm-hmm. So this would be another good test for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, Bill likes to schedule those 4 opponents, and you get to really see how your team plays against tough competition. It's going to be a great game. It's homecoming. They're going to be in Yoakum, so I'm pretty sure those Bulldogs are ready to go. And there's going to be tons of talent on the field. Like yeah. A lot of Division I talents. Giddings has a great program. They've been great. They always have great athletes. So it's going to be a good test for the Bulldogs.
And there's going to be a lot going on too in Weimar, Texas. Believe it or not, the Weimar and Schulenburg game this week is the DQ big game of the week, and that's always a fun thing because the Cameron team comes in, mm-hmm. they go to the DQ, they have pep rallies, it's all recorded, and Fox Sports Southwest will run it on later in the week, mm-hmm. And that's a lot of fun, and of course you don't really need any more intensity to that rivalry. Mm-hmm. Those teams are right next to each other. Coach David Huseman, who's in his final year at Weimar, he's already said he's going to retire after the season. He coached at Schulenburg and led them to 2 state championships. So that should be a fun game. But if you don't want to travel, we've got you covered here. At Memorial Stadium, we have Palacios and Bloomington. That Bloomington, of course, has had a lot of trouble with the hurricane. And so this week they decided, since both East and West are on the road, they would play here at Memorial. So you don't even have to travel if you want to see some football. I know Coach Adam Arroyo, a lot of Victoria people are familiar with him. Some watched him play on the 1987 state championship team from Cuero, and others watched him at Baylor. And some people remember when he was an assistant coach under Mickey Finley at East. So, I mean, a lot of people know Adam, I'm sure. And Bloomington will be out. And Palacios, Palacios had a tough go. In fact, their last win came in 2015 against Bloomington. So this should be a very competitive game.
That's going to be great. Like you said, Bloomington, with all that's going around their community, they'll have time to make a trip up here, the people that can. And that'll be a big win for that community. Like you said, Palacios hasn't won a game in a while against them. So it's going to be a true test for both teams. Someone's going to win, and it's going to be interesting to see. And we'll be there. Ray Castillo will be there to cover that game.
Right. And like we said, we'll, as usual, we'll have the Cover It Live on Friday night. You can follow all your teams. We'll get in what we can. The Cover Live, and of course we'll have all the stories in the zone on Sunday, as we always do. And if you have any questions or you're just wondering about anything, there is one bit of news I want to pass along. I found out yesterday. Goliad next week is playing Ingleside, and because of the damage caused by the hurricane, that game has been moved to Tolosa Midway's field in Corpus Christi. So that's kind of a heads up for you if you were planning to go to that game. But otherwise, things are slowly creeping back to normal, and we'll have a full Friday night of action, and we're getting very close to district play, so teams really need to kind of get things together this week. And then, of course, like we said, we'll be back next week. If you have any questions, please give us a shout out.
We did have a hello from Ross Stapp.
Oh, great. Ross Stapp, our Calhoun correspondent, who will be covering the Calhoun Liberty Hill game. He'll get a chance to see, it's kind of interesting, Hunter Onken, who's a running back for Liberty Hill, was the Ford Tough Player of the Week this week. So, last week was Jordan Whittington. This week is Hunter Onken. So Ross is going to get a chance to see a good player Friday night. And really, that's about it for us right now. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.